Bernie Sanders always says, or often says among, when he's on the stump, one of the go-to lines is that the United States is the only developed country in the world without universal health care. And we all know that. They have universal health care throughout Europe, they got it in Japan, they've got it in Israel.
You know where else they have it?
Mexico.
Russia.
Russia.
And Syria.
Yeah. I don't know if it really counts in Syria right now in practice, but yeah. So the point is,
I was in Syria. I walked in. I got a corn taken off of my finger. No bill. I walked right out in Syria. I'm sorry.
I don't even know what that is, but the question, what's interesting to me is that nobody seems to know why we're the only country. We know why we can't have it now. It's because there are entrenched interests.
Right.
But how did those interests get entrenched here when in other countries, all the rest across the developed world, that didn't happen and they developed universal health care?
So tell us.
So I will tell you. So the story of universal health care begins in Prussia in the late 19th century with, I think we have an image of him, a gentleman by the name of Bismarck.
I think you mispronounced that. It's called Russia. Yeah. What did you say?
Russia. Well, maybe the whole time Donald Trump Jr. was meeting with Prussian interests. Anyway, this is Otto von Bismarck, and he not only proposed the first modern welfare state, but also in 1883 proposed the sickness insurance law, which is the precursor to modern universal health care. And it's actually known as the Bismarck plan in many European countries that have universal health care, the way that it's set up. So, but realistically, until I've heard this, I don't have any evidence to this, but I've heard from my physician friends that around 1900 was around the point where if you went to see a doctor, you had a better chance of the doctor healing you than making you worse. Before then, they had all sorts of strange, they didn't know about germ
bleeding. They'd bleed you.
Bleeding, yeah, exactly. But then after 1900, medical practices improved to the extent where you were probably better off going to a doctor than not when you were sick. So, and that's when people started to go to doctors and go to hospitals. And then in the progressive era, the progressives promoted the idea of universal health care, which was then known as sickness insurance. But this is going to shock you, the American Medical Association, not in favor. They called it, guess what? Socialized medicine. And so the idea was defeated, even though progressives supported Teddy Roosevelt, and Teddy Roosevelt, he was their candidate. I'm not sure if he necessarily supported universal health care, but anyway, during that time, many urban US workers gained access to what's called sickness insurance. Yeah, they got the wrong image there, but we'll get to it. Through employer-based sickness funds. So a number of Americans got used to associating insurance with their employers, and that paved the way sort of for third-party health insurance in the 1930s. But before then, in the late 20s, this is when people would go to the hospital now because they could actually be healed. They had x-rays, they had anesthesiology, you had surgeries that could actually heal you. So people started going to the hospital, but they couldn't pay for the hospital bills. So, but patients would typically spend a number of days in the hospital, but they couldn't pay for it, and this was problematic. So one solution was established in 1929, Baylor University in Dallas, Texas. They made a deal with a group of teachers where the teachers would pay 50 cents a month in exchange for Baylor providing them with 2 weeks a year of hospital care if they needed it. If they didn't, then they just, So this is the first real employer-based healthcare system where the workers combined to insure themselves. And it was a good deal for Baylor, it was a good deal for the teachers, and it grew and grew, and eventually this became what we know today as Blue Cross. But the problem is the Great Depression hit, and people weren't going to the hospital because they couldn't afford it, and Franklin Roosevelt in 1935 wanted to include a publicly funded healthcare program with the Social Security legislation that was passed in 1935. We all know about Social Security, but he pulled the Social Security or the healthcare element out of the Social Security bill at the behest of the American Medical Association, who again derided it as socialized medicine. So they kept beating that, and so it failed. But we did get Social Security. But as part of the New Deal, FDR had, and I think we have an image of FDR signing the Social Security Act in 1935. There he is. All right, so now we move on to World War II.
Can you see that picture again? I don't know if you see that guy on the right. There's Larry Bud Melman.
There he is. Hey, nice? looking good, Larry.
It's an old reference.
Yeah, who knows who Larry Bud Melman?
That's fucking.
May he rest in peace, Larry Bud Melman. You can call Larry Bud Melman like that, but what's his name? Dinesh D'Souza. They look kind of like both small guys, sort of wore suits too big for them. So okay, so during World War II, what happened? Very pivotal. During World War II, there were wage and price controls instituted by the federal government. So companies could not attract or retain workers by offering higher wages. So they had to figure out something they could offer to give the potential employees and their employees a reason to stay or to hire. And what they came up with was employer-based healthcare plans. They didn't have to, that wasn't covered by the wage freezes, so they were able to do that. And then this further entrenched the idea that employees would be getting their healthcare provided, or at least insurance provided through their worker, their employer. So, and then you had a couple of changes in the tax law in 1943 and 1954, the IRS, which made it tax-free. Your employer-based healthcare would be tax-free, so that made it more advantageous to continue that practice. And because of these tax changes, participation in these employer-based plans grew from 9% of the population in 1940 to 63% by 1953. So that's 13 years, and it skyrocketed. And that by then it was pretty much in place. But before then, we have Harry Truman. Remember Harry Truman? He was a supporter of universal healthcare, but when he was president in 1946, and the virulently anti-communist Republicans, Russia, I got Russia on the brain. It's the media, damn it. The Republicans took to Congress and they labeled his plan socialized medicine. He couldn't get it passed. It was opposed by the AMA as well as the American Bar Association and the American Hospital Association. And this is what's interesting.
So why would all those associations?
I think it's an interesting question, but at the time this was the beginning of the Cold War, and anything even remotely associated with communism, obviously, but with the AMA, you're talking about government controlling costs and government imposing cost controls, and doctors, hospitals not being able to charge whatever they want.
Okay, so that's it. They want to be able to charge what they want.
Right.
Okay.
You don't want the government coming and telling you what you can and can't do.
And this was before hospitals had to take care of people.
Right.
So now that they have to take care of people, I think they're a little bit.
They're a little more open to the idea of preventative medicine. Yes.
Hey, are you sick and tired of corporate Democrats? So are we. So why not become a member of the Young Turks and help us say no to corporate money? If you become a member, it helps support shows like the Aggressive Progressives who are pissed off at corporate Democrats. Go to tytnetwork.com/join. It's only $10 a month. It helps keep us independent and keep bringing you the truth.